All right, let's address the elephant in the room. If Judaism is not a religion that subjugates women, then why can't women be rabbis? In the last video I put up, I explored the topic of Christian veiling versus Jewish head covering, and we spoke about how Christianity is predicated upon the fact that a woman is supposed to be submissive to her husband, whereas Judaism is about keeping private that which is private. And of course, I fully expected to get criticism about Judaism, and of course that criticism did come in. People were saying Judaism is also a patriarchal religion, and women are subjugated in Judaism. So I wanted to offer you my view as a Jewish woman. Let's explore this together. I prepared some questions exploring this topic, and let's see where it leads us. All right, are women second-class citizens in Judaism? What does the Bible teach, and what is my experience? In Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, we find a truncated version of God creating man. It says, God created man in his image, male and female, he created them. We understand this to mean that when God created man with female components, and then he removed the female components from man and created woman as an individual being. But woman was included inside of man. Woman was also created in the image of God. We are given a holy soul, just as a man is given a holy soul. And in Judaism, when we speak about marriage, we speak about the reunification of the soul that was divided between two different bodies. Men and women may be different, but no one is better than another. We just have different missions. And being inside of different bodies means that God wants us to accomplish different things in this earth. It's not that one is better than the other, one is second class, one is supposed to be subjugated. That's not what it's about at all. Moreover, when we stood at the foot of Mount Sinai, both men and women were given the Torah. The Torah belongs to all of us. So when somebody like Paul comes along and says a woman cannot teach Torah and a woman should learn in submission quietly inside of her house and she should just ask her husband, no, when God gave the Torah to the Jewish people, he gave it to them publicly. The women were allowed to learn it publicly. This is a wonderful, beautiful thing. Everybody is supposed to be teaching Torah on their level. As we say in Judaism, if you know Aleph, teach Aleph. Men and women both have the capacity to learn, to absorb, and to share, and to bring other people to know Torah. Torah was given to everybody. Now, in my last video, I actually said a statement that I feel needs clarity. So I want to go back and I want to examine the statement. I want to clarify it. So I said, if a woman can teach Torah better than a man, like who is Paul to say that she shouldn't? I'm not talking about Paul now, but I want to say this teaching Torah better than a man. What do I mean by that? Everybody has their specific niche. Everybody has their specific thing that they are drawn towards and that they are capable of teaching. And in certain situations, hearing from a woman versus hearing from a man can be beneficial. And in other situations, hearing from a man versus hearing from a woman can be beneficial. Nobody's in competition with each other. It's not like, I know better than you and I'm going to teach better. No, it's my unique mission. What am I supposed to be fulfilling in my unique mission? Am I the appropriate one for this mission? And that brings us back to Josiah and how he approached Huldah, or he had this delegation approach Huldah. Why? The sages asked the question, why did he specifically approach Huldah? One of the answers given is that in this situation, it seemed incredibly ominous and it seemed incredibly scary. And Josiah, he wanted to reach out to a woman prophetess because women naturally have more compassion than men, generally speaking. And he was hoping that her natural compassion would influence the way she answered him. And it would have some kind of bearing on the situation. So in this situation, Josiah felt that reaching out to a woman prophetess would be the most beneficial. It's not that women are better than men or that men are better than women. It's who is the best fit for that particular job. All right, what has been my personal experience teaching Torah? How have Torah-observant Jewish men treated me? Okay, so this is interesting. There is nothing wrong with women teaching Torah. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing, as we spoke. And in my experience, I've received only tremendous support and advocacy. People have really made me feel wonderful for teaching Hashem's Torah, for opening up new venues for people to learn, because every person who teaches Torah is making an impact on this world. So let me tell you some stories. Just last week, I had 2 Hasidic men contact me. One of them was a Hasidic rabbi who reached out to me just to tell me that he watches my channel and he's blown away by the breadth of knowledge that I have. And he wanted to know, like, how did I come to know all that I know? And how am I able to present the Torah true viewpoint to the world and at the same time understand Christianity? So he just wanted to give me that compliment and encourage me in my endeavor. Another Hasidic man reached out to me and he asked me for help. He said that he was approached by a missionary inside of his place of business, and this missionary is going to be working with him for the foreseeable future. And this missionary came over to him and was discussing a chapter in Isaiah, and he didn't know how to navigate it because for whatever reason, he didn't learn in depth. And he asked me for some pointers of how to understand the text. A Hasidic man reached out to a woman for advice of how to understand something. I gave him the advice and he was able to go back into the situation with confidence, able to handle the encounter. I felt absolutely no negativity whatsoever. He was very appreciative. This is a Hasidic man from an ultra Orthodox community, and yeah, no issues whatsoever. Another couple stories. A few years ago, I wrote an article about the bringing of the first fruits to the temple in Jerusalem. And this is not something that we've seen in our lifetimes because there is no temple standing now. So I wanted to take this topic that is not easy to conceptualize, and I wanted to bring it down to a level where people can digest it. So I took the laws of bringing the first fruits and I wrote them into a fictional story in order that people could bring it into a picture in their mind and they could actually visualize themselves going through this process. And this article was published inside of a magazine, and probably 40,000 people or so read it. And there was a Rosh Yeshiva, a head of academy, who reached out to me and said for years he was searching for such an article that was true to the law and yet made it very relatable. And he asked me for permission to use this as part of his curriculum to teach high school boys. Of course, I told him, yes, my pleasure, go ahead and do so. So for the last few years, this has been part of the curriculum in a boys' high school. One more story. A few years ago, I was discussing the concept of Mashiach with a very big Talmud Chacham. If you know the name Harav Matisyahu Solomon of blessed memory, he was one of his chavrusas, one of his learning partners. A tremendous scholar who has more than 40 books to his name, one of which is taught in almost every yeshiva around the world. And we were discussing Mashiach, and he said something I didn't agree with, so we went into this in depth, and I explained my position. And you know what he told me? He said, I defer to your opinion on this matter, for you are a greater scholar than I in this. This is a huge Torah scholar, and he deferred to the opinion of a woman. Now, I'm not foolish enough to say that I actually believe I'm as great a scholar as him. In this matter, I happen to have some information. What I do want to focus on is that this person who is so great and so intelligent, so knowledgeable, who spends his days just learning and learning and learning, he wasn't intimidated by a woman knowing something more than him in this specific area. He was more than happy to defer. That is what it means to be a man. A man is not afraid of the knowledge of a woman. Unlike Paul. Paul was afraid of anybody having a different opinion from him. He wanted to shut everybody up. And I think that's one of the reasons that he was so anti-woman and so much into a woman being submissive to a man, because if he could shut up 50% of the population, then half of his job was done. He just had to get the men to obey him and listen to him. I don't consider Paul a real man. He didn't have the strength of character to be able to handle somebody disagreeing. And, you know, personally, when I look at his letters, I find the funniest thing in Galatians 6:11, where he's like, look at the big letters I'm writing to you with. He was like this temper tantruming toddler who's like, if you're not going to listen to me, I'm just going to be as loud as possible to try to draw as much attention to myself. That's not what it means to be a man. So in my experience, Jewish men have treated me very well and have been there to answer questions in case my learning was lacking, because I'm not sitting and learning for hours and hours a day. I have a family, and as much as I would love to sit and learn for hours a day, it's not possible. You know, in fact, my YouTube channel would not be functioning right now if it weren't for two very special rabbis who have an incredibly close place in my heart. They encouraged me to open up this channel, to learn more. They lifted me up, and they helped me to better my channel. They gave me a voice. They told me, you have something to offer to the world. Go out and do it. Don't let anybody stop you. And I'm so incredibly thankful to them and to all the wonderful people in my life who support me. So as a Jewish woman, do I feel that men look down on me for my learning? Absolutely not. I'm not going to pretend I know everything. I don't. I'm a person in a growth process. I learn more every day. And that's what it's about. Everybody just keep climbing the ladder. Learn more. Teach more. Just keep going. You have something unique to bring to this world. All right, let's address the elephant in the room. If Judaism is not a religion that subjugates women, then why can't women be rabbis? Okay, so in order to understand this, the first thing we have to understand is that there are 613 commandments inside of the Bible, and these commandments are not for every single person to fulfill. The commandments are dependent upon who a person is. Now, some of the commandments are for everybody, such as loving God, knowing there's a God creation, fearing God. All of these apply to everybody at all situations and all times. However, other commandments only apply to men. Some commandments only apply to women. Some commandments only apply to whatever specific segment of society. It's absolutely impossible to fulfill every single commandment inside of the Torah. In order to do so, you'd have to be a Kohen, a Levi, a Yisrael, married, divorced, a woman, a man. It's not possible, okay? Which actually makes the Christian claim that Jesus came to fulfill all the laws that I could never do laughable. Why? Because if he was a male, he couldn't have fulfilled the commandments of a woman. Like, seriously, did he go to the mikveh after giving birth? Think about that. It's ridiculous. It's an absolutely ridiculous claim. Anyways, there are different commandments for different segments of society. And there are commandments that apply to everybody, but the obligation can be different depending on the situation. Let me give you an example. Prayer. Everybody's obligated to pray, but the obligation for men and women is different. Men are obligated to pray 3 times a day with a quorum of 10. Women are not. Women can pray in their own words, just speak to God. It doesn't have to be a formal prayer, though many women do accept upon themselves to do formal prayer. What's the difference? God understands human beings. He created human beings. And he knows that women are more biologically inclined to not only bearing children, but raising the children. Children need their mother. So many women are busy with raising their children. And imagine if you had this incredible burden of going out to pray 3 times a day with a quorum of 10 while trying to take care of your kids and trying to have a functional family life. That would be an overwhelming burden. So God doesn't expect that of women. Women can do additional mitzvahs if they want to. They can do the things that the men are obligated in, but we don't necessarily need that. Moreover, Judaism recognizes that men and women are different in not just our physical inclinations and our physical design, but also our spiritual and emotional design. And women, generally speaking, are more spiritual than men. We are more tuned in to godliness. And men need more physical reminders. So men are given more concrete, more frequent type of commandments, and women are just not obligated in these time-bound commandments. So now, where is the place that men go in order to fulfill the requirement of praying 3 times a day with a quorum of 10? Of course, they go to the synagogue. The synagogue is their primary place. Women are invited to come and to be a part of it. We can pray together with them if we would like to. We're not obligated in it. Now, here's the next thing you need to know. When it comes to our levels of obligation, men are up here in the requirement for prayer. Women are down here in the requirement for prayer. Now, somebody who has a higher requirement can fulfill something on behalf of somebody with a lower requirement in certain instances. But somebody with a lower requirement cannot fulfill the obligation of somebody with a higher requirement, such as reading the Torah. Somebody can read the Torah on behalf of somebody else, or they can say certain prayers on behalf of somebody else, but they can only exempt somebody who has the same level of requirement or a lower level of requirement. So a man can exempt other men and can exempt women in this aspect. A woman cannot exempt men. That's the way it works. Now, when it comes to the same level of requirement, a woman can exempt a man. Let's say, for instance, I want to make Kiddush for my husband, the cup of sanctification that we make on the Sabbath day. I can do that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with me making Kiddush for my husband. Now, I personally don't generally do that because I feel that gender inclination is a very important thing. Men and women are wired differently, right? Men need respect much more than a woman needs it. Women need to feel safe and we need to feel loved, but we don't have that same like, hello, I need to take a lead in something so much. So if I can give that measure of respect to my husband, have him make Kiddush rather than me asserting myself and saying, I'm going to lead the show over here, then that's something that I'm more than happy to do. It doesn't mean I'm submissive. It means that I'm understanding that our gender needs are different. It's called respecting who we are as human beings. Okay, next question. Why is there segregation inside of synagogues? What's the whole purpose of that if it's not to shut away women and to make them feel different? Great question. So we have to actually change the question. Let's ask the question, what is the purpose of prayer? Why are we going to the synagogue in the first place? We want to be in unity with God. We want to say, God, I'm bearing my soul to you. I'm opening up. I want to connect with you. I want to unify with you. That's the purpose of prayer. We spend our prayer service climbing up this ladder, reaching up to God, grasping him. And we don't want any distractions inside of the way. And let's face it, men and women, unless they have homosexual leanings, generally are attracted to each other. Let's just say you walk into a public high school. You have boys and girls together. What are the girls going to be doing? They're going to be preening and the boys are going to be strutting. It's normal human nature. We're drawn towards each other like magnets. So if I'm looking to unify with God and I'm sitting in a synagogue where there's a cute guy sitting next to me, or there's a guy who's surrounded by pretty girls, like really, how much is he going to focus on his prayers? How much is he going to focus on connecting with God? He's always going to be self-conscious. She's going to be self-conscious. They're going to be thinking about the wrong things. So we don't want any distractions. So yes, so we do put up a mechitza, a barrier in between us, in order that we could remain focused on the right thing at the right time. Now, I'm going to say something that you may not agree with, but I'm going to say it anyways. This is my opinion. This is the opinion of the Torah. Segregation between genders is a great idea. We don't want intermingling because everybody has Yetzer Hara. Everybody has an evil inclination. And it is so easy to fall in these matters. It is so easy to develop a deep connection with somebody that you're not permitted to. And once a person falls into this trap, it is so hard to get themselves out of it. So in general, women should teach women, and in general, men should teach men. That is the best structure. We want to be holy. We want to be pure. We want to emulate God. We don't want to fall into sin. So setting up barriers, setting up boundaries is a fantastic idea because nobody can trust themselves. And quite honestly, I think more people have fallen in this matter than they would care to admit. The inclination in this is so strong and so deceptive. It starts out a little bit, reach out to somebody, talk to them, a little bit more. And quite frankly, there are no platonic relationships. I don't care what they tell you in secular school. There are no platonic relationships. Once you have that connection with somebody of the opposite gender, it sneaks up on you. And it starts playing with your emotions. And if it's not one person who's attracted to the other one, it's the other one who's attracted. Or both of them together. And they begin to fight urges. And they put themselves in a situation that they really shouldn't be in. There's no reason for it. Quite frankly, nobody can trust themselves in this area. We have to have boundaries. Everybody can slip up. It's not easy. The struggle is real, and people have to have compassion on the struggle. They have to say, you know what? I'm a human being. This is difficult for me. And that's why we set boundaries. We set boundaries to help us. And even great people have fallen. And honestly, the greater you are, the higher level of your soul, the greater your temptation, the bigger your struggle. Have respect for that, but put up boundaries. You know, even Abigail, a great prophetess, she slipped up. When she met King David, she was a married woman and she flirted with him. She wasn't in a happy marriage. She was married to a no-goodnik, a really bad person, an evil person, a wicked person. And when she met King David, she was hinting to him that there's going to come a time that she's not going to be married and he should remember her. But the problem is she overstepped the boundary because she was married at that time. She planted a seed in his mind and it shouldn't have been done. Everybody can slip up. Nobody wants to be bad. I mean, most people don't want to be bad. But once you start this downhill slide, it's a very slippery slope and it's so easy to do things that you end up regretting. Thank God, God accepts the penitent. When we fall, we can pick ourselves back up. It's only the wicked person who doesn't pick himself back up, right? A righteous person falls 7 times and he gets back up. It's the wicked person who stumbles and stays down. But again, we don't want to put ourselves into a situation of temptation, so it's really important to be careful. So in my view, segregation between the genders is a pretty good idea. It helps us. And in fact, some of the laws that we have for maintaining segregation, for not having intermingling, were created to intentionally protect women. There was a story inside of the Tanakh that happened with King David's own daughter, Tamar. At that point in time, men and women who were forbidden to each other, they didn't go into seclusion. However, single women weren't included inside of this prohibition. But Tamar was raped by her half-brother. And she could have remained silent. She could have not said anything. She could have bore her shame. But she said, no, this is not okay. And she went out. And she was the original founder of the Me Too movement. She told everybody, this is what happened to me. I was raped. I lost my virginity to a rapist. And King David instituted new legislation that single women should not go into seclusion with men in order to protect them, in order that nobody should fall into this trap of being raped or losing control of themselves, doing things that they end up regretting, because human inclination is so strong in this regard. So in my point of view, Jewish law is the most sane way to live. It takes into account the human being, the human struggle, and it helps us with it. I don't feel that I'm subjugated as a woman at all. I feel powerful, I feel capable, I feel respected. And it is true, there are some crazies in the community who don't treat women with respect, but they are a very small minority and they are not reflective of normative Judaism. So as a Jewish woman, I have to say I love Judaism. I love being Jewish. I think it's the greatest thing in the entire world. So I hope that clears up some questions for you.